Come for talking about Tom Izzo's best accomplishment at Michigan State and stay for the MSU versus Purdue preview with, Noah Eagle of NBC. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube right now. Comment below your favorite accomplishment that Tom Izzo has had so far here at Michigan State, because that's what we're going to start this episode with, and then we're going to get into this massive preview for a massive game. Spartans, Boilermakers, can Michigan State stay in the Big Ten race? And it'll be me for a little bit of that preview, but then Noah Eagle, yes, you'll hear his voice on Peacock for tonight's game. He's also joining this show. But before all of that, this is awkward. This sucks, and I only have myself to blame for this one. I have some egg on my face. And look, we get things wrong on the show all the time. Most of those are opinions, takes, and even sometimes when we get like a stat wrong, it's like close enough where the point still remains. I had a huge blunder Saturday after the game where Michigan State won at Illinois. We talked about everything Michigan State had to overcome, being down 16, raucous away atmosphere, Illinois going into the bonus with about 13 minutes left. And I also said Illinois outshot Michigan State at the free throw line, 33 attempts to 13. That is such a horrendous clerical error on my part. I have to correct that. Guys, I'm really sorry. Both teams shot 13 free throws. I don't even have anything to blame right there. I was only drinking water the entire night. I couldn't even chalk it up to, just got a little too happy in the fridge. No, that's just pure uncut illiteracy by yours truly. So I'm really sorry. Worked too fast there. I don't think it changes much of the tone. Obviously still a big win. Obviously still one worth celebrating. And will history still remain at the end of that night? Because Tom Izzo, Mr. 354 himself, that's how many Big Ten wins he got. On that episode, we also said really quick, it's another great accomplishment for Tom Izzo to sit on top of the Big Ten. Is that his biggest achievement? That's a different discussion for a different day. Or, you know what, guys, how about right now? Let's have that discussion right here, because over on Twitter or X, I don't care what you call it, I posted a poll there. After locking up Big Ten win number 354, what is Tom Izzo's greatest achievement? Almost 1,500 of you beautiful people voted. Now, the selections were the national title, 8 Final Fours, all his Big Ten wins, or other. It was a dead heat between the national title and 8 Final Fours. The 8 Final Fours got 44% of the vote. The national title, 43.8. 10.8 of you said the Big Ten wins, and then other was 1.8%. So with all of the others, that people wrote in, which, the tournament streak was definitely a crowd favorite, which we will get to. There was one by the Wine Dude who wrote in, being the face of MSU for the last 30 years. That's going away, I think, his biggest accomplishment, but we're going to keep it on the court. What he did in between the 94 feet of baseline. Okay, so when he does ever step down, he might outlive the show. He might outlive me at this point, his coaching career for that matter. It will be heavily centered around what he's meant for Michigan State. But right now, as a basketball coach, what is his best accomplishment? Well, of course, the national title. You could see the argument for that one, right? Sure, we hear the people all the time, oh, that was 25 whole years ago. That's still an elite fraternity to be in. I know 25 years have passed, but yet only 15 guys since the turn of the millennium are walking around with a national title in their back pocket. And, of course, he's the last Big Ten coach to do so. Now, for 8 Final Fours, this is where it gets interesting. I'm actually surprised that this one won, even though I might even agree with this one, because the only Big Ten programs with more Final Fours than Izzo himself are UCLA. They got 18. They did okay back in the day. And then Ohio State has 10 Final Four banners. Tom Izzo himself is tied with Indiana's entire program history and any other Big Ten team that I did not name. Yeah, Izzo is looking at them in the rearview mirror. Again, just himself. Think of all these programs that have been around for decades, if not almost a century. And there's old Tommy I sitting there with 8 Final Four banners. You can see why. You know what? A lot of people enjoy that about Izzo. And, well, of course, there are some naysayers that say, oh, Sparty, you guys celebrate Final Four banners more than anyone. Well, yeah, if I'm sitting with just 2 or 3 in my entire history, I'd be a little salty. One guy single-handedly has 8 too. That'd be like me back in the day whipping around my Chevy Malibu saying, oh, Mr. Mercedes driver, no one cares about that. No, like, I know the broke programs are a little salty about it, but Final Four banners, especially 8 of them, that is worth celebrating. Also, his 354 Big Ten wins, of course, this goes along with the tournament streak, too. A lot of this is, pretty synonymous with each other. It speaks to the consistency. Right now, Tom Izzo in his whole career, roughly 12 Big Ten wins per season. Also, you got to go back a few years, too. Wasn't always a 20-game season, so 12 wins in an 18-game schedule, well, that's really solid. He's only had one season below 500 in conference play, and, well, that was, of course, the COVID season where Aaron Hendry put the team on his back to get to the tournament. And, of course, guys, it speaks to the longevity of Tom Izzo. I have a hard time believing, not to say it's for sure never, ever going to happen, but I have a really hard time believing that we're going to see guys stick around out of school for 30 years. And that's a two-way street. One, the coach being happy in the same location for 3 decades, and also a school sticking with the guy early on. Like those first few seasons under Izzo, straight to the NIT. You could see how there might be some doubts, especially as I guess we'll call it I don't want to say holdover because that's such a negative word, but an assistant from the Judd Heathcote era where the end of that one wasn't decorated with banners either. You could see why a school, especially in this day and age, after 2 rocky seasons, you just saw a coach come from a tree that kind of ended, You can see how they'd want to get rid of him too. But yes, 30 years later, here we are. And this is where the 1.8% had a lot to say about the tournament streak being his biggest accomplishment. And I think that there's an incredibly strong argument for this too. Right now, it's 26 straight tournaments. It's about to be 27 next month, unless the committee just makes an error. That'd even be bigger than my 33-13 free throw error. But look, that's the longest nation actively in the nation right now, if you don't count Kansas. Even if you do want to count Kansas, who, by the way, got theirs vacated in 2018, what have you. It's either the first or second longest active streak. And it's about to be the second longest all time, just behind that Kansas streak. Now, it's a standard that's higher than nearly any other program, guys. I mean, you think of the Dukes of the world, Coach K. And I'm not saying Izzo wouldn't trade his career accomplishments for Coach K's, his multiple national titles. But there is something to be said about, you know what, your basement for the last 26 years, the worst that you have gotten is still in the tournament. That is a high standard here at Michigan State that speaks to how great of a coach he is, the culture he builds, the talent he develops here. There's so many things that goes into 26 straight years of just making the tournament. It is insane, guys. I mean, so again, even Duke, North Carolina, they've had their hiccups. And I'm sorry, I believe it was North Carolina that has the longest streak of all time with 30. But I mean, guys, it's the floor always being the tournament. It's remarkable for Tom Izzo. We also got a few comments I did just want to read really quick. Dave Klein, friend of the program, he joined us after the game on Saturday. He wrote, winning a title is super hard, but the Final Fours and all the Big Ten banners show the longevity of it all. Sustained success. Kevin Ollie has a title too, and no one is calling for him to be a Hall of Famer. And Nick wrote in, this is the most unique one, creative one here, but there is something to be said about this one too, guys. Getting the fans to stay against University of South Florida in the rain in 2013. I was at that game. Our guy Tom Izzo begged and pleaded the students to stay in that stadium. Weather delay be damned. And you know what? He actually rallied the troops, and yeah, for the most part, they stuck around for that one. So yeah, great face of the university, of course, which we will ramble on and on about when it is time to do so, if his career ever comes to an end. But yeah, as far as what his top accomplishment is, there it is right there. Now, hopefully he can get Big Ten win number 355 here. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Plus, Noah Eagle will join the show. I'm very excited for that, and I hope you guys are too. But first, you need to talk your ears off about TurboTax. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress. And while you get most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. There's no stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is taxes Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, let's get back to talking about this game here, okay? Because this is a massive one. We talked about this with Dave Klein after Saturday's massive win on the road in Champaign. Oh, yeah, how fun that was. You need to make a count by winning on Tuesday because this is a must-win, I think, if you want to stay in the Big Ten title chase. If you drop this game, not only are you now tied with Purdue as far as, the wins and losses go in the conference, but now you're 2 back of Michigan. And the schedule doesn't really get a ton easier after Purdue, right? You got to play Michigan twice. You got to play Maryland on the road. You got to host Wisconsin, who, my God, are they ever going to lose again, those Badgers? And then Iowa on the road. I know it's not a great Iowa team, but any road game in the Big Ten, that's tough. You got to win this one. So let's talk about these Boilermakers who have lost 2 straight coming into this one here. So they lost to Michigan, barely by a little bit in Ann Arbor, and then they lost to Wisconsin, who was shot 74% in the second half. No one outside of the Boston Celtics was going to beat the Wisconsin Badgers in that game with the way they shot the rock in the second half. Anyway, it's the big 3 over there with Purdue. Of course, you got to start with their point guard, Braden Smith, who unfortunately, I regret to inform everyone, still really good at basketball. No, he's not just a dump the ball down low to Zach Edey and rack up the assist merchant. No, he's actually good, guys. It's unfortunate. 16 points per game, 8.8 assists per game. Holy smokes. And then 4.7 rebounds per game, too. Yes, he's a point guard, but yeah, he gets a little dirty inside the rebounding game, too. He's shooting 38.6% from 3, and guys, on defense, leads the Big Ten, 2.4 steals per game. So, yeah, this team will have their hands full. I'm sure his defense will be great on whoever he's marked up against, whether it's Fears, Akins, Jace. I'm sure he'll bebop around a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see who Michigan State throws on Braden, whether it is Jaden Akins. Jeremy Fears' headstrong defense. It'll probably be a cocktail of a little of some players, like we've seen Izzo do many times. So, yeah, just keep your eye on that one. I don't got to tell you to do it. You know where your eyes are going to go here. But, yeah, it can't be stated enough how well the season Braden is having over there. Speaking of great seasons, yeah, they got a really good front court player. I know none of us wanted to hear that, but Trey Kaufman-Renn, 6'9". He's not, this massive behemoth like Zach Edey, for example. But, yeah, he's just up next in a long lineage of great Purdue big men. 19 points, 6 rebounds per game. He has scored 20-plus points in 7 of his last 8 games. He finishes at the rim at 60.9%. I'm kind of sick of it with Purdue. Every year they got someone they could just dump the ball to on the low block, and they'll just score. And I know it's 60% from the field, but I swear it seems like it's 90%. These guys never miss. Anyway, Fletcher Lawyer, if you thought that he was going to cool down from behind the arc this year in his junior season, got horrible news for you. He's shooting it at a blistering 45% from 3. So, yeah, he's doing really well. So, hey, of course, Michigan State, they got some good players there. We're going to talk more about this game with Noah Eagle, if I could say it for another time. But really quick, BartTorvik.com suspects this as a 73-72 Michigan State victory. Even the computers are expecting this to be a coin toss. And speaking of Torvik, right now the computers, they give Michigan State a 24% chance to at least get a share of the Big Ten title. Wisconsin, they're in second place at just about 24%, a little higher. And then Michigan, north of 70%. So they're in the driver's seat right now. So again, guys, this is a must-win game to stay 2 games clear of Purdue and also make this Friday's game in Ann Arbor a win and you're tied sort of game here. So, oh, God. Oh, I can feel my heart racing. Well, hey, if you want even more, hey, guys, guess who's going to come up next? You'll never guess it. Yep, it's Noah Eagle. Let's get to him right. Folks, your eyes are not deceiving you. Your ears are not either. He's back. It's Noah Eagle, play-by-play guy over at NBC/Peacock. And Noah, let's just get right to it right now. Why are you back here? You are above this, by so many miles. Why?
I don't know, the vibes from the Cal Holiday gloveless all the way through that really carried me back. I feel like I've been lacking in the basketball department. I need something of the same level of stature.
You know what? It's good that you've come here because I was going to press my luck because all good gamblers know that when you hit a jackpot, you don't walk away and count the lucky stars. No, you keep going for it. So that's what we're going to do here. We hit the jackpot a few months ago on NBC. You name dropped us in that fantastic win over Iowa. I don't know what happened to the team after that. I got one for you, Noah. Did you know that Jace Richardson, son of NBA legend, national champion Jason Richardson? Now, if you could fall out of your chair, thank you. See, you get it.
What?
Good.
Whoa. Okay. All right. This is groundbreaking. This will have to get in. Yes. This is a guaranteed to get in.
Wow, look at that. Before the under-16 timeout? Is that what I just heard you say?
I think it's very crazy. Possible. I'd say that I'm not going to go full Charles Barkley guarantee, but it's okay. Right along those. It's in the zip code.
Okay, keep the volume up, everyone. This is very exciting. Look, before we get into this game, and you're fresh off of calling a Purdue game. They faced Michigan last week, and my goodness gracious, was that a heart-stopping game like every Michigan game is, but let's keep with Michigan State, Tom Izzo, because I just talked to myself inside of this basement studio just for a few minutes about what his best accomplishment is in his career, obviously off the heels of surpassing Bob Knight, all-time Big Ten wins leader. Noah, you're the expert, though. What have you? What do you think is the most impressive thing that Izzo has done in his career here at Michigan State?
Well, I just feel like because it's still current, it's the active tournament streak.
Sure.
I just think because – I grew up a Syracuse fan. My parents met there. I ended up going there, and it was a given. It felt like every year that they were going to be in the tournament. But even Jim Boeheim, there were years that they didn't make it. I mean, even at some point, Duke didn't make it, and Mike Krzyzewski didn't make it. The fact that Michigan State fans for this long can just pencil it in every single year. And sure, there have been years like last year that they're right on the bubble and they have to sweat it out, and I totally get that. But the fact that it hasn't been broken, and COVID year obviously withstanding, but that's remarkable to me. It just doesn't happen in the modern college basketball world. I think if you go back to the 90s, you say, yeah, well, you knew which teams, and there were a handful of them that were going to be in. But because of how spread the talent is now or across the entire country. I mean, just look at what the SEC has become. It never was that decades ago to this level, at least. It's so impressive to me. I don't see that happening anymore in college basketball. I don't see guys staying the way that Tom Izzo has stayed, and Matt Painter for that matter. It's just not going to be the case anymore. So the fact that he stays and obviously builds this, I was reading some articles. I know The Athletic had a couple, and the one point that was made was when Bob Knight was done at Indiana and let go, Indiana was the premier program in the Big Ten, and Tom Izzo was just starting out and becoming obviously what he is. And I think the year before, or maybe I guess the year after Knight left, was the year they won the national championship. So become this powerhouse. But if you look at where they are now, they are essentially the preeminent program in the Big Ten. And that speaks volumes for what Tom has done. I mean, he's a wonderful man. He preaches all the right things. He's still gonna give you that tough love, which is important. But
certainly,
the fact that he's built this the way he has, and they've made the tournament essentially every year now in the last 2.5 decades, is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and the longevity on top of it all has just blown me away too, because Jay Wright leaves, Roy Williams, Coach K, and I've always said when we brought that up, I completely 100% get it. If I was in my profession for that long and things changed that drastically, call me a quitter, call me whatever you want. I'm out the door. So that Izzo's sticking around for all this and still succeeding at the level he is, it truly is remarkable. Now, let's hope that we could have like a Big Ten banner somewhere in the near future, because it's been a few years for that, but they are back in the race after a great win on Saturday. We are riding high. I could barely sleep over the weekend, Noah. Oh, God. That had a little extra on that one. Bring us down to reality, though, Noah, because this Purdue team is unfortunately a very good team. You saw them. They got Braden Smith. They got TKR. Why should I be losing extra sleep on this game? Because instead of just, hey, great win against Illinois, why should I be fearful when my head hits the pillow tonight?
Well, I mean, let me start by saying Illinois is an excellent team as well. Yeah. To me, when whole, when healthy, when in rhythm, that's a Sweet 16 team easily.
Sure.
They have so much talent top to bottom. Jakob Jonas is phenomenal. Baller. He's going to be a phenomenal NBA player. And I think that as Will Riley continues to develop, and Ivic is kind of getting back into form after the mono stuff, that's a really good team. So definitely don't poo-poo that win, which I know you haven't.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know that everybody in East Lansing is still celebrating that win, right? But my point is rightfully so. That's a really good team on the road to come back from 16 down. Not an easy task. So I give them a lot of credit. Purdue is going to come in angry. I mean, losers of 2 in a row. That hasn't happened in 2 years for Matt Painter. That's just not common for this era of Purdue basketball. And I think a lot of people probably look at it and say, well, they don't have Zach Edey anymore. And he was averaging 25 and 13 last year, and he was back-to-back National Player of the Year. So obviously they're going to take a step back. You haven't been paying attention if that's the case. I mean, Trey Kaufman-Renn has been one of the most improved players probably in the country. He just had a 30-point game against the Wisconsin team that, while historically is known for their defense, right now is probably even better offensively than maybe they've ever been. They're really, really impressive, really, really good team. And they're, I think, the top-ranked Big Ten team. Them at Michigan now. It's funny, the new AP ranking, you've got like 11, 12, 13, 14, all Big Ten teams. So you're none of the in the top 10, but then those 4 right outside of it. And those 4 are essentially competing for the Big Ten title this year. Maryland's kind of right behind. But this Purdue team, on top of Trey Kaufman-Renn's improvements, I think now they've unleashed Braden Smith. And for my money, I know he had an off game on Saturday against Wisconsin, but for my money, he's the best point guard in the country. He just, in terms of floor general, you're just not going to find a better one. And he's one of those guys that I think a lot of people look at and say, well, he's just a great college player. He's another one that I think will have a successful NBA career. So long as he stays healthy, puts on a little bit of weight, his feel for the game is second to none. His angles that he can find as a passer, I've never seen at this level of efficiency. And then scoring-wise, he's taken another step. He's averaging 16 points per game, which you just didn't necessarily expect out of him. He had big moments, especially last year as a sophomore. And I actually think that Purdue, in a lot of ways this year, kind of is similar to what Michigan State was, in that Michigan State has a couple more transfers, and then obviously with what Jace Richardson has done as a freshman.
Right.
But both programs have seen clear improvements in guys who got legitimate minutes last year. Purdue loses 1 guy. Michigan State loses 3 essentially in your starting lineup. But the improvements of the guys who were freshmen into sophomores or sophomores into juniors, I think we're seeing that. Purdue, we saw that last year, and then especially again now this year without Edey. But last year, Smith and Lawyer in the backcourt became sophomores when they were freshmen, and that experience paid off in the run to the national championship game. And so Purdue loses Edey and then Mason Gillis. But these guys improved because of the experience. I think we see that with the Spartans too. So I expect it's going to be a dogfight. Purdue early in the season really struggled defensively. Then in January, they were one of the best defensive teams in the country, top 10 in defensive efficiency. But in February, they've kind of fallen off. And this last week in particular, they've really fallen off defensively and keeping guys in front. So that's how Michigan State's going to have to win the game. If they're going to go out there, if they turn the ball over, you're giving easy looks to a Purdue team that can get hot quickly. You take care of the basketball and you take care of what you're supposed to offensively, you put yourself in position.
And when you are watching Michigan State, and obviously, here in Locked On Spartans, we've talked about every single thing under the sun of why this team is so much fun, so good. It's, the ode to old Tom Izzo basketball, defend, rebound, run. You also have Jace Richardson being a nice surprise. What about you, though? Because, obviously, you're not in the Michigan State fan base. You have a broader perspective. What's blown you away the most about this Spartan team? By the way, Jace Richardson, son of Jason Richardson.
Okay.
Hammer that home really quick.
Wait, one more time. Just give me that one more time.
We're going to drill this into you. Yeah.
So it's similar to St. John's for me. I've done some Big East this year as well.
Okay.
Big East package on Peacock, and St. John's top 10 team in the country right now.
Amazing. Yeah.
And they're having a fantastic season, but they're doing it without efficient 3-point shooting. And just in the modern basketball landscape, you look at the top teams in college basketball now in the last 5 years or so, you have to be able to shoot the 3, or you at least thought you had to be able to shoot the 3. And Michigan State's been, for most of the season, the worst 3-point shooting team in the Big Ten. But you mentioned throwback Michigan State feel. That's what's excited me. And it was the same with St. John's. It feels like some of Patino's old Louisville teams that didn't rely on the 3-point shot. They relied on defense. They relied on getting out in transition, out-rebounding their opponent, and just being tougher and mentally tougher at that. That's kind of what I've seen a lot of this season with Michigan State, and really the Indiana game outside and look, the West Coast trips are just going to be hard for everybody. I think that we have to acknowledge that for football and basketball. I think we really saw that in the football season where all these teams had to travel multiple time zones and struggle with teams that they were probably much better than, other than Indiana going to UCLA. They just blew the doors off.
Rolled them.
That was a tougher one. But
yeah.
I think of even like Penn State going to USC, and USC had a lot of talent, but Penn State needed multiple fourth down conversions in the fourth quarter and then overtime to win that game. And they needed Tyler Warren to have like 4,000 catches for 5,000 yards and 7,000 touchdowns in the game.
Yep.
He had to throw, catch. He literally
hat trick, right?
Yeah, he was doing everything for them. So all that to say, I think take those games out of the equation a little bit. The Indiana game would be the only one that was the concern just because of how that all went down. But you could also chalk that up to maybe some of the pressure for getting that record, especially against IU. And also the Hoosiers were desperate. I had just had a couple of IU games before that. They were desperate for a win, and they clearly played like it and got what they needed. So the way I see it, it's a throwback, and I think that St. John's is a really good template. Like, you can look at St. John's and how they're winning, and I think you can look at Michigan State and how they're winning, and there's some similarities.
When it comes to, now I'm going to go off the wall here. This is, away from the game. I'm just, fascinated about your broadcasting career. As young as it is, you're still obviously draped in experienced accolades. What's the biggest difference, though, between football broadcasting and basketball? Is it the fan interaction? Because you're not up in that cushy press box there. No, you're on the wood. In this case, you're going to be right in front of the Breslin Center. Or is there a bigger stark contrast between like the two sports that you do that you wanted to point out?
Well, I mean, the preparation is just different leading up because you've got 100+ players for a college football roster versus 15 to 17 or whatever it is on a college basketball roster. And you see them. I mean, you have to. The other thing is the overall sport itself requires different things within the actual game flow. A football game, a play is run, and then you've got 30, 40 seconds to set up whatever you want. You can go into a story, you can tee up your analyst on something, and then you got the next play. Versus a basketball game, it's constant. And the only real time you have to do any of that stuff is when there's free throws or dead balls. And so you just have to be much more, I think, economical with your time during a basketball game. And you also have to really recognize, what do you need during a basketball game that you probably wouldn't need during a football game? I get probably more nitty-gritty stats for basketball, and there are certain stats on a football game that I have that I'm really excited about and they never get in, or every now and then they do. But basketball-wise, I have so much more, I think, numbers-based stuff, and then I really lean into what the coaches are saying. Football, we usually talk to coaches, we talk to players. Obviously, I've got an analyst, we've got a sideline reporter. So I just think there's more avenues to go, and then it really lets our crew shine because they can showcase all these elements they put together and these graphics, and you see the like crazy AI generated stuff or whatever it is. Like Monday Night Football, you see those all the time.
Oh, amazing.
All the time. They're incredible. You're just not necessarily going to get those in a basketball game. So you have to be aware of that. And then I think what I like about basketball is it forces you to really be on your toes, because if you look down for a second, you're going to miss something. Versus football, I really can look down. So a lot of the preparation I do for basketball, it better be really up here more than anything, because if I'm looking down for a second and Cohen Carr is now on a fast break and I'm not ready for it, we're going to have a problem. And there's no worse feeling than having a sick highlight right in front of you and feeling like you flubbed it.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring up one of the great calls of the Olympics, of basketball, really. And I swear I'm not just saying this to butter your biscuit here, but this could be the last time anyone's ever heard you call a basketball game, if you only watch basketball sparingly. But it was the cross, the sauce, the splash. It's just sensational. Did you go to bed with that like on your mind a few days beforehand, or was that just organic, spur of the moment? How did that come to be? I'm sure you've answered this question a few dozen times, but let me be the 40th person to ask about this one.
No, I mean, it's good timing because I know the Netflix docuseries about the Olympic basketball experiences, I think it's coming out tonight. The first.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I'm excited for that because I'm looking forward to reliving a lot. Those were some of the most insane moments. But the best part about that call, so I was doing the Olympics with Dwayne Wade, who had never called a game before our first game. And so that was the semifinal against Serbia. That was kind of the dagger shot by KD at the very end. But the best part is if you go back and listen to it, after I say the sauce, Dwayne says KD's not nice, and then I say the splash. So it was like this perfect blend between the two, which you don't teach that to somebody. He just had this innate feel for it, and it worked. So it blended so perfectly. So yeah, that was really cool. It felt like, I don't know, I'm much younger than Dwayne, and I'm sure he's really happy that I'm saying that I'm so much so younger than him. But it was like this proud dad moment where
Right.
I'm like, wow, he's got it. He nailed it, So that was really cool. But to be there, I mean, that whole game, they were down 17 points to the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like we thought they were going to lose. I know that on the air, Dwayne was like, were you nervous? And I was like, no, we were petrified. Dwayne looked like he saw a ghost. Our on-site producer looked like he saw a ghost. Everybody was losing it because we couldn't believe what we were watching. So for that to end in the way that it did, and then the gold medal game, it was pretty cool.
Sensational. Speaking of cool, always great having you on. And I can actually say that because a friend of the program, this is your second time on, Noah. Can't thank you enough for your time, your insight, especially battling tough travel conditions today. And we had a little delay over there at the airport, but when does that ever happen in the winter?
I know.
Like, that gives, man. What a rarity that you endure today. My goodness gracious.
Crazy. I got here and there's some kind of white substance falling from the sky. What is?
Right. It's not right. But no, hey, no, on a serious note, can't thank you enough for dropping by again. Again, you're way above this, Noah. Come on. But I appreciate it. I know the viewers do. I know the listeners do. So, hey, cannot wait to watch you on Peacock. It's going to be a great time. And I can't wait to see what you have queued up here. Any, Cohen car puns you have? I'm very interested. So
TBD, man. TBD. No, Matt, anytime. Seriously. Appreciate you.
Right. You're the best, Noah. And same with everyone that watched, everyone that listened. You guys are all the best, too. Yeah, we're going to be back tomorrow. Whatever happens in this game, whatever Noah narrates for us, for better or for worse, we will be back here, Locked On Spartans, breaking it all down because, yeah, we do this 5 days a week now. Until next time. All right, guys. Love you all. Go Green.